What's good, YouTube? It's Brendan, aka Drip, back with another deck profile. And today's deck profile, we have this week's Locals deck. Deck I've been wanting to update for a while. Well, this version of the deck is at least that is, because I'm going to be updating both versions of this soon. It's just right now, this week, I did this one, which is the Invoked Mekk-knight. Both decks, for the most part, kind of play similar, obviously because it has Mekk-knights in it. But this one, my opinion, is a little more aggressive outside of the other one, which plays more passive and outgrinds their opponent and tries to break their board. This one tries to make it to where your opponent can't play the game, as where the other one tries to outgrind and break the board, which they both can play as equally as aggressive, in my personal opinion. It just depends how you go about it. My personal opinion, I like the Orchest one more, probably because I'm an Orchest fan, but I love both versions of the deck, and they both are very powerful. And this one is going to be, there's going to be a lot of things, for the most part, like big cards that I'm not going to be running that everyone else runs. But I decided in this format that you don't need them, and we'll explain more about that when we get into it. Also, for the most part, this deck is actually fairly budget, and if it's not, the cards in it that's not budget, there's budgetary options, and I'll talk more about that when we get into it. But if you're new to Yu-Gi-Oh, or you want to pick up another deck just so you don't get bored of your primary deck and you don't want to spend a bunch of money, then this is the deck for you, man. I'm telling you, this deck, definitely this version, you don't need the big boss monsters that this deck is used to running for the past several formats, because the deck can function enough on its own for what, sorry, I have background noise. But no, this deck can function enough on its own and break boards just as good as every other deck can, and as well as it could with all those cards. But enough with that. Let's go ahead and get on the deck profile, and I'll explain more in depth when we get there. Also, when I do this profile, I'm going to be showing it in sections of what the deck, well, the sections of like the deck, not just monster, spell, or traps. It's going to be the engines, basically. To start it out, we got 3 Alistair. Obviously, if you're running the invocation build, you have to have 3 Alistair. 3 Meltdown. 1 Terraforming. And 2 Invocation. I'll go ahead and get the other card too. It's not really an engine card, but my personal opinion, if you're running the the Terraforming, you gotta be running the Mine too. We are degenerate and are running the Mine, mainly because I hate running Meltdown with Terraforming, because normally that's just too many Alistairs, but the whole purpose of this deck is to get the Alistair as fast as possible, basically. I know most Alistair decks kind of are, except for my version of Invoked Dolls. If you haven't seen that deck profile and you like the Invoked Dolls as well, then go check it out on the channel. It's busted, and it's usually the primary deck I play. I just took a break from it so I can run this instead. But and moving on, I hate running Meltdown with Terraforming, because like I said a second ago, normally it's too many Alistairs, but because if you have another field spell to utilize and go and grab, like mine, then you're fine. It just fits my playstyle more. Because if I wasn't running mine, I wouldn't be running Terraforming either. So if you don't want to run mine, my personal opinion, I wouldn't be probably running Terraforming, because you can run other hand traps or whatever else you want. And the invocation, obviously invocation's invocation. You don't need 3, 2 is perfect. Moving on to the Mekk-knight engine, where it gets kind of funky. Well, it's not funky to me, but it's going to be funky to you guys, because it's going to be something y'all are not used to, which is not pretty standard. We got 3 purple, because he's the best one outside of this one here, because we love people not knowing we're running Mekk-knights and resolving blue for like 2 or 3. I resolved him for 3 one time on EDO, and it's freaking cracked. Moving on, 1 blue, 1 yellow, 1 regular, and 1 pink. Pink is an honorary Mekk-knight. Now let me get to this back half, and I'll explain more. I run yellow because yellow actually comes up a lot, definitely in this format, when your opponent is basically, almost everybody is running Imperial Order. I had 2 separate games, not at locals, but online, where I was playing, and this card came in so clutch because I had Alistair in hand, but you can't really do jack diddly squat with it if they flip it IO on you, which he did. And then I just used Indigo to shift yellow to the same column as the IO, and then I just banished a random Mekk-knight from grave to get rid of the IO, and that person actually ended up scooping, I guess because he was salty, but still, my personal opinion in this format, yellow is very mandatory, and I don't want to play this deck without it, honestly. It comes in too clutch, comes up too much. And in the one gear suit, because there are some situations where if you're going second and you open either Alistair or this, in certain situations this is actually better than Alistair, because this card enables more board breaking than Alistair does. Alistair is more of a board presence and lockdown than Gear Suit. Gear Suit promotes, I'm going to break your board and do some serious damage. And also, he's an additional normal summon. He's a searchable normal summon too if you can't get to Alistair. I've never really had a situation where Gear Suit got in the way of my Alistair or my Alistair got in the way of my Gear Suit, because even if I did see them both in hand, I wanted one of the other over the other one, if that makes sense. So Gear Suit, just the one of Gear Suit comes up as like significantly, so I would not change that. And then the one Pank, because Pank, like I said, is an honorary Mekk-knight. It's cracked. It's free, honestly. I thought about running whatchamacallit, Alpha over Pank, but I like Pank to be able to pop anything, as where Alpha locks you into monsters, basically. Moving on to the rest of the World Legacy monsters, I run 1 and 1, 1 Crown, 1 Chalice. In my previous build, I was not running Chalice, and the card is meh, honestly. I like it, but I don't like it, if that makes sense. Like, I want to get this card out of my deck as fast as possible, which normally with this deck, that's what you want to do anyways, and you want to get it engraved. But I don't like it in my deck normally because of the simple fact, myself personally, I have bad luck and I'll end up drawing the freaking card anyways. So it's a love-hate relationship with this card, because once you get it in the grave, the following turn you just search a follow-up and it becomes so far ahead, it's nuts. And then Crown is just busted because it's undervalued in my personal opinion, because it's a free extender and it's a free negate. So not much needs to be said on that regard. Moving on to the going second card / hand traps. Now that he's actually a lot cheaper, 3 Godarla, because I'm terrified of the bird up deck. My personal opinion, if you're running this deck, you need this is the kaiju. This is the way to go until the day comes that barrier statue gets banned. And even if bird up gets nerfed, I'm still running this, because the other barrier statues no one's really running at the moment, and I would rather be prepared for that one, the wind one, than any other one. So these are still remotely cheap. If you don't have them yet, you need to pick them up now, like ASAP, before they go up, because like I said, right now these are the best kaijus right now. This card, like, I didn't face any at locals, I didn't face any bird up, but this card still helped out a lot, even though it also actually kind of costed me the final round, honestly, because I sided 1 out and kept 2 in, even though I thought I sided 2 out and kept 1 in, and I literally bricked. If you've seen the video, I drew double Godarla and 2 Lancia and something else, and then when it was my turn, I drew Lancia for turn. So I had triple Lancia, double Godarla, and something else. You just can't win at that point, because it's literally written in the cards for you. Moving on to more hand traps. Valor, because it's Valor and it's good this format, and because it's a light monster too, and it's a soft once per turn, so that helps too. Imperm. Imperm is Imperm. I like Imperm. not much needs to be said about imperm, but these 6 are mainly for like Sword Soul. These are for Bird Up. The next 2 hand traps I run, you can opt to run Droll over them if you seem fit, but I opted to run this card because I feel like overall its impact was kind of greater than Droll, because there's certain matchups where you come into Droll and Droll is like not that good. Granted, I know Droll is actually relatively nice right now this format. It's just the fact that some deck can play around it or play through it. So I wanted to be a step ahead of that and hit them with the hand trap that they would not see coming. And those are DD Crow. This card puts in freaking work ever since I added it to this deck. I honestly might end up bumping it to 3 at some point, but right now 2 is working perfectly. This card is nuts. You can hit anything out of the graveyard. I mainly put this in there for DPE, just to completely get rid of that issue. And it's a soft once per turn too. So like all my hand traps basically are soft once per turn. So even if I brick on hand traps, I'm just going to hand trap my opponent to death and just simplify the game state to where like all I really need, this deck can easily go off with 1 card. So basically even if you brick on hand traps, you just hand trap them to death and you can potentially draw into a 1-card starter. Because this card is also good against Striker. This card is also good against Phantom Knight. My buddy, I was playing in the Phantom Knights, I hit him with Crow, and I didn't even know it did that much damage, but he literally said if I wouldn't have crowed him, he would have went full combo on me, and I didn't really have much else in my hand to stop them. So Crow is clutch, definitely in a lot of matchups. DP, Phantom Knights, Virtual World, snipe out the spell out of grave. What else? Let's see. Eldritch, get rid of their traps. It does wonders, and I think this card is only going to get better as the format evolves. Definitely post probably ban list. So that's it for the going second / hand traps. I mean, we still have some more going second cards, but starting off with the spells, we got 2 droplet. If I owned 3 or had 3, I would run 3, but I only have 2, access to 2. This is my personal opinion. If you don't have access to droplet and you're wanting to play more of a budget option, do not run Chalice. As long as the Bird Up deck is around, do not run Chalice. I would run Dark Ruler no more, because yes, this deck can OTK, but it mainly wants to break boards, and Chalice targets. And as long as Bird Up is a deck with their Simorg Link and the barrier statue, the big problematic cards can't be targeted, and Chalice targets. So if you're trying to make this deck and you're trying to make it on a budgetary option, on a budget, then run Dark Ruler no more instead of droplets. Then we got 1 Reborn, because it's just generic and it's free. 1 Succession, because it's a searchable monster reborn and it's a World Legacy card. 1 Memory. This card actually came in more clutch here recently than it ever has in the history of me playing this deck. Originally I had this at 2, but I dropped it down in something else for DD Crow. Obviously, if you haven't noticed already, I know a lot of you are probably going to be like, yes, you're not running the Dragoon package. No, I'm not. I cut the Dragoon package for many reasons. 1, I wanted to see if this deck could really play without it, because at the time I'm still kind of relatively new to the deck, even though I'm like falling in love with what it can do. Also, I want to see if it could play without it in this format for many reasons. 1, because I think Anaconda is going to get hit, like I said a second ago. 2, because I want to see if it could do it. And 3, Imperm and Valor are freaking everywhere. So I did not want to get to the situation to where I linked my board away into Anaconda, burn for 2k, dump the card, and then get Imperm or Valored. And then then I went neg so much, in my personal opinion, if you did that, because not only did you dump the spell, you also burn for 2k, and you still have 2 more bricks in your deck. So, yeah. Do I think you need DPE in this deck? No. No, you don't. because DPE only really shines in the extra deck lock, and this deck could do the extra deck lock, but it's like taking a detour that's unnecessary, because this deck would much rather make lib and break the board that way, or if it's going first, it would just much rather to set up like Macabre and situations like that, or you can go and get your World Legacy plays going and get them locked under all your Mekk-knight negates. So, like, yes, it could run it. Do I think it needs it? No. Would I run it in it? Probably not. So, moving on. That's it for the spells. Last 3 cards in the deck is 2 Evenly and World Legacy Secrets. We are a go second deck. So this card is a blowout card. This is the only really not budgetary option in the main deck, like budget card. This deck like kind of sort of needs this card, but if you want a budget option of this card, it's not really doesn't really give you the same value of this card does, but it's still kind of a blowout card, and that would be Dark Hole. Originally, I was running Dark Hole instead of Evenly, but I wanted something that completely hit everything, because Dark Hole only hits monster decks / combo decks. I wanted something that would hit those and control decks all in one, so I could have a main deck out to those matchups instead of having a dead Dark Hole against a control deck. But one thing that the Dark Hole comes in clutch where the Evenly doesn't is when you're playing against a Neckbeard and they drop Mystic Mine on you and they lock you, and if you had Dark Hole, then Dark Hole would just freshly reset the board and the mine would go away. But Evenly is still, my personal opinion, better, because you only have to worry about that matchup with like a Neckbeard once in a blue moon, and normally you can see it coming because they smell and they have a Neckbeard. So moving on to the extra deck. Start off with links. We got Amirage for obvious reasons. Secure Gardener because obviously Amirage, and outside of Amirage we can also link Lib off into it because she's a Cybers, fun fact. 1 link Revo for the token for anything that our opponent may give us. It's a level 1 token like Dinos or whatever it is, but also for our Gearsu token. Masquerena, because it's Masquerena, not much needs to be said. Generic link 2. Lib, because like sometimes in a situation I would like to run 2 of this card, and I know for a certain if you're running pure Mekk-knights, then you need 2 of this card, but 1 was fine. Same with this Morningstar. For a while, it took me a while to get used to only running 1 Morningstar, because the second one is kind of like a security blanket, but the second one never really came up. Once you resolve this once, because we run a really low count on World Legacies anyways, by the time you resolve it once, you're pretty much set up the way you need to be, and you're going to win the game regardless. With the IP, you got Unicorn. Unicorn is Unicorn. It's been around for like 3 or 4 years now, so it's just been doing unicorn things. Then the MVP actually of the entire night, honestly, in the main and extra, is literally Spectrum. This card put in so much freaking work, guys. It's ridiculous. This card has helped me win a number of games. It's just nuts, because his effect when he's in a column and he can just attack directly and he can be destroyed by card effects in situations like that when he's the only one in his column. Special summon a Mekk-knight from deck. This card, he's really good, and he's honestly my favorite Mekk-knight outside of like purple, honestly. Because he's so good. He came in clutch every time I summon him. That's it for the links. I'm not running Avermax because you're very rarely ever going to make a link 4 on this deck because you're fusing. Onto the fusions. We got 2 Macabre because the second one basically a security blanket for the grind game, and this deck needs the second one. 1 Agoides because he can get huge and he helps you break boards. 1 Raijin for obvious reasons. Bird up, basically. one Kaliga because we like a generic VFD, one Purg for OTKs, and then one Intis for the bad decks that run Maximus, and for our side deck, which I'll show more into that. I wanted to make room for Nova for that very reason, so I could send Nova and Intis to break their board even more and then get a free Macabre. But I just didn't have room for it, which at my locals I don't have to worry about it because I'm usually the only one that runs Dogmatica anyways. Moving on to the side deck, I'll go ahead and show you all the side deck that I rocked this week and what I'll rock on with this deck. I got 2 Droll. If I was playing online, I'm running 3 Lancia as well, but if I was playing actually like online, I swapped the 3rd Lancia out for a 3rd Droll. So I run 3 Droll, 2 Lancia, fun fact. But at my locals, I expect a lot of banishment, like Phantom Knights, Eldritch, and then Flunder. So Lancia is better in that regard. Got 2 Cosmic. Cosmic is actually really good this format. Just completely gets rid of the problem. And we don't like discarding sometimes. 1 Duster for obvious reasons. 3 Lancia, like I mentioned before. And then whenever I run Mekk-knights, I usually kind of run this somewhat of this same engine because a lot of people are like, oh, Mekk-knights, let's force him to go first. So even if I opt to go first to throw them off guard, I like to have these. I run the Trap Trick package, which is basically any basic, like, generic normal trap. So this is my lineup. I got 2 Trap Trick, 2 Punishment, 2 Compulse, and then the 3rd Evenly. One thing I will say is if it's very situational, because Punishment does come up clutch, but I would, if I owned a 2nd copy of IDP, I would definitely run 2 IDP. So for, like, if it makes sense, if I had a 2nd copy, I would keep this lineup, probably drop the 3rd Evenly, and then drop my 3rd Lancia down to 2, so run 2 Droll, 2 Lancia, and then put in a IDP, because IDP hits a lot of decks right now, definitely anything that's running DPE. So you completely get rid of their follow-up, so they can't draw and get rid of the problematic card as in him as himself. So, and it's not just for him, it's just good for any deck right now too. The card is very undervalued in my personal opinion, definitely right now. So I definitely need to pick up another copy before it's all said and done. Another reason why I opt to run the trap lineup is because you always want to make your own columns, because after game 1, your opponent is always going to try to play around giving you columns and making your life difficult. That's another reason why our spell lineup is kind of bigger too, because we need to be able to set our spells in order to help make our columns, because our opponent after game 1, like I said, is going to make it difficult on us. So regardless of the situation, I want to make traps because they're use traps because they're easier to make our columns. On top of making our columns, they also help us win in the grind game, because no one's going to expect really that much if you're not playing traps or you're not playing back row with Mekk-knights. The game 1, they're not going to side in back row removal on you. So if you steal game 1, they lose. That means they get to choose whether to go first or second. You're running Mekk-knights, you just beat the crap out of them going second. They're going to make you go first. And they're also not going to side in back row removal. So if you side in back row cards, you have so much advantage. Definitely if your back row cards help you out their board or their deck itself, you gain so much advantage. And that's my outlook on it. And most of the time whenever I run Mekk-knights, that's what I like to do. Play that mental game with your opponent, and usually never fails me. Also, another reason why I opted to run Compulse, because Compulse is so good right now. It's just one of my all-time favorite traps, because it completely just gets rid of the problem, just go. it just completely shuffles it back. Another thing too about IDP is IDP, like, actually online, because I was actually running it online, and that card literally won me a game because I was actually able to link my stuff away into just game. So yeah, my personal opinion, IDP is the way to go. But that's it for the deck, guys. Main, extra, and side. I know normally I don't show you guys the side, but I just want to show y'all what I was working with. I love this deck. This deck is very powerful. It's very fun, very underrated, and it's, for the most part, like I said, very cheap. Even if you, even with the expensive cards I have, there's budgetary options for you all out there. And if you're just looking for a fun deck to pick up and it's very competitive and catch people off guard, and it's good going second, and any format where you have a good going second deck, no one's going to expect it, yeah, I advise you picking it up. It's really fun, guys. I think you should. But anyways, guys, be on the lookout for upcoming deck profiles. I'm also going to probably, I don't know if it's going to be before this video or after this video, make an announcement about a little mini series myself and the Discord fam is going to be making, along with other members of the DDD fam, whether it be an actual team members or just members of the Discord. But we've got something really cool coming up for you, the rest of you guys, and we just wanted to do. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for all of the stuff in the community tab. I'm starting to talk to you guys more through there. So just be on the lookout for everything. And if you haven't already, guys, I'd appreciate if you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. And if you be so kind to check out the description where the PayPal and the Discord link is if you want to become closer to the DD fam. But with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. You all have a wonderful day, night, evening, morning, whenever you're watching this video, guys. Hope you're all staying safe out there in the age of COVID. Jesus. God, I need to go to bed. Drip out, guys. Peace.